man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side. This guy's like becoming like a circus act. Like he could do this.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
To become who we want to be as individuals, and at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flips.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media.
Shout out to Jalen Ramsey. He sucks.
Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Mark. This is episode 30. What do we got? We got the Combine coming this weekend. We got some trade talk, some free agency rumors going around. So things are heating up a little bit. Not quite as slow as a news week. Mark, how you been, bro?
Good, man. That intro just makes me smile, man. The Jalen Ramsey thing. If he ever becomes a Lion, I'm just gonna have to eat my words on that.
I wanted to talk to you about that. Is like, you know, speaking of trade rumors, like that's really something that's starting to heat up. Is like he's getting actively recruited to the Lions, and we as a Lions podcast have a clip of you saying that he stinks on it. So,
and there's no context with it either. You know, just it doesn't look as good.
Yeah, just shout out Jalen Ramsey.
He sucks. Yeah,
one of the best corners in the league.
Yeah, the context is missing there, man.
Yeah, well, look, we'll have plenty more clips to work with. If he does become a Lion, I think we'll just have to sub that one out. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, so we got a guest today, so I don't want to prolong that much longer. But, you know, he's your kin, so why don't you go ahead and make the intro?
Yeah, he is blood. He's my cousin. But Tony Annese we're going to bring on today. We're excited to have him on. He's played at Central Michigan, was a safety, all conference player. And now he's the co-defensive coordinator right now for the back-to-back national champions, Ferris State Bulldogs. So was a great player, already a great young coach, really good football mind, and we're excited to have him on and ask him some questions. What's up?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Tone.
For sure.
Tone, I want to start off with a question. I told John what it was going to be. I don't even know if I've ever told you this story. So Tony obviously played at Central, and our paths never crossed there, right? I got there, he was done the year I got there, right? So we never were on the same roster together. But when I first got there, probably 2 or 3 days in, we're working out, doing our sprints, doing the conditioning and stuff, just like right before the season begins. And we have different last names, right? Annese, Petrito. So no one knew we were related. I didn't tell anybody yet. No one knew we were related. No coach, no players. And somebody came up to me. I think it was Steve Eiper, who you played with a few years before I got there, right? He comes up to me, goes, "Bro, you look just like this dude we had on our team last year." I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I don't even know who you are, man, but you look just like Tony Annese, man. He was one of our captain safety last year. You walk like him, you talk like him." I'm like, "Dude, that's crazy you say that. That's actually my cousin." He goes, "No." He goes, "You got the facial hair." Like, and at the time I was just like, that's weird. Then 2 days later, we're in the locker room. I still hadn't told people that we were related, and they were talking about this badass safety that would like come down and hit people. And it was like Quan Jameson and guys like that. Like, dude, you didn't want to mess with this dude. And I'm just listening to the conversation. I don't know who they're talking about yet. And then I hear him say, "Yeah, man, Tony Annese, bro." He's like, "That's not a dude you wanted to cross the middle with." I'm like, it just kind of established what I already knew, you know, watching you play for 4 years. But I was like, yeah, I mean, he's not even here anymore, and people are talking about him, right? So that gives people out there a little bit about the type of player you were. I don't even know if I told you that story, but it was like the craziest first week I'm there. I'm like, damn, I got to follow in those footsteps. I don't want to tell people I'm related to him, you know?
No, I remember you told me like, I don't know. I think I heard from my mom, because I think you might have told like Aunt Sean or something like that. My mom told me.
Yeah.
All world, man. It's crazy. Crazy.
Well, and, you know, I'm seeing you for the first time too, and the resemblance is definitely uncanny for sure.
Yeah,
especially you guys both rocking the dad hats and all that good stuff. So, you know, for those that don't know, and I guess this is kind of a question to the both of you, like kind of describe the Annese Petrito football family, because it's pretty prominent in Michigan. I think, you know, those that played under your dad, Mark, are kind of familiar with it, but you know, it's pretty far reaching. So I'd kind of love to hear a breakdown of it.
Yeah. You want me?
Parker,
go ahead.
All right.
just for me, I mean, we grew up in a football family. Obviously, the nieces, my uncle, who's the head coach at Ferris State, he was a high school coach for a lot of years, and he had a ton of success at the high school level. And then his father was a high school coach. Obviously, his name is it's the stadium is named after him at Corona High School. So it kind of runs deep in the Annese bloodline. And then with Petritos as well, obviously I played for Mark's dad, and he's my uncle, and he's a Hall of Fame high school football coach, one of the best coaches, the state of Michigan's ever seen. And it's just been a privilege to kind of grow up in that environment, because we were so knowledgeable at an early age, because we've been around it our whole lives.
Yeah, we were, John, like to build on that. I mean, that was like all of us cousins pretty much played it right from like the get go. And, my Uncle Phil, Tony's dad, he was a great player, played at Elma with Tony Annese, Sr., who's the head coach at Ferris, like you mentioned, and my dad all played it together. That's kind of where that friendship and bond of the Petritos and Anneses kind of came together. And then my Uncle Phil actually introduced my dad to my mom, because he was already married to my Aunt Vicky, who is my mom's older sister. Right. So like, it just kind of came together that way. And then obviously, like, Tony played at Central. He's now coaching. I played at Central. Cole's at Grand Valley, my brother. His brother Philip played at Ferris State. Like,
Yep.
There's just like, the connections just go. His uncle Steve played at Central, right?
Yep, at Central. They gave me
at Central.
Yep.
Like it just like kind of runs deep through that. And like Tony said, like the knowledge and stuff, that the instincts that you get at a young age, we just kind of, I guess, had because we were thrown into it and it was just in our blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as from the beginning. So
yeah, I can speak from experience. Like, you were no doubt the like mental rep leader on the team every year that I played with you, right? Like, I don't think anybody's football IQ out of any player was really higher than yours. And you really led by example with that. And Tony, I know you played quarterback too, so I'm sure that was more of the same back when you were playing at Adams and all that as well.
Definitely. And it kind of transitioned over when you played defense at the next level. Like, I kind of was the quarterback of the defense as a freshman, sophomore, kind of understood what we were doing and kind of could see things from an offensive lens, because I played quarterback and I understand what offenses were trying to do. So, yeah, helped out a ton growing up in that environment for sure.
Yeah. And on that note, like, when you're game planning, giving your uncle a look on offense, like, does it help that you understand the triple options so well? And like, how do you kind of help mix things up in practice like that and help, make sure they're getting the best look possible going into the week?
Definitely. It's always hard, because one thing about my uncle is he's constantly putting new wrinkles in the offense. You know what I mean? He's constantly doing different things, and he's kind of just up to date and kind of switching things up. So like the stuff he did when I was in college is kind of, he doesn't do anymore. He's kind of just reinventing himself every single year. So it's tough. We go at it in practice, but it's good competition. It's very good competition, and kind of great minds kind of going against each other on an everyday basis prepares us for big games.
Mark, you there? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think my thing froze for a second. But one thing to build off that, Tony, like, you said you played quarterback, right? And I think a lot of the knowledge you had as a defensive player came from that. But there was also a time at Central where they were using you at quarterback a little bit on a scout, and they kind of saw what you could do, obviously, because they recruited you. And so they knew you could do that. But there was a package, right, where you could go in at quarterback, I guess, for one of your bowl games, and it just never got brought out. I guess you got behind early on, but talk a little bit about why they put that in, and how you had to warm up the cannon a little bit going into that week.
So yeah, I'd always joke around, like, put me at quarterback, and I was an athletic guy. I felt like I could do some things, dual threat, and I had some Division I offers coming out of high school to play quarterback as well. But we had a really good quarterback. Obviously, he's still in the NFL, Cooper Rush, and he was a pro style guy. He could throw the ball really well. But I would go back there. I remember my freshman year, like, for all the triple option teams, we played Navy, or we played like Jordan Lynch at NIU and a couple other quarterbacks that were really good runners. I would go over and give the defense a look as an offensive scout team quarterback. And then on the weeks that were not more pro style guys, I go back and play defense, because I was on and off. And then going into my retro sophomore year, I started at safety, and we were going into the bowl game, and we finally put a package together that was for me to play, Wildcat quarterback. But we played Western Kentucky in the bowl game, and we were down 49-7 or something.
Yeah.
We had to throw the ball real quick. So didn't get a chance to go out there and make some plays at quarterback. But yeah.
That's super cool. And then like as far as like game planning defensively too, like who are some of the recurring teams that are kind of tough to game plan against at Ferris?
Obviously Grand Valley. Grand Valley does, especially in recent years, they've done a really good job just offensive line wise with their scheme in the run game. So they do a really good job. It's hard kind of get a grasp from them. I think what we do great, you can go into a game and have a good game plan, but what you have to be great at is adjusting and adapting, especially making halftime adjustments. And I think that's what we do a really good job at Ferris State. So it's something we've been, we look at our second half stats throughout the whole entire year, and especially in the playoffs, we've excelled. I don't think we gave up a score in the third quarter till it's very minimal, very minimal. So that's one thing we pride ourselves on. But Grand Valley for sure. Trying to think, and then obviously when that's in our league, in our league, Grand Valley is going to be that tough offense that we got to defend against every year. And then moving forward, you get into the playoffs, there's a lot of good teams that can make some stuff happen on offense. We played Colorado School of Mines, who could put up in the national championship game, who could put up points, West Florida as well. I think the toughest for me personally, the toughest offense to defend is a kind of a West Coast offense with a dual threat quarterback. That's to me is the toughest offense to defend. When you got a guy that can throw and pass, a solid offensive line, and guys, skill players that they can get the ball to quick, it's not easy. It's not easy.
That was the next question we were going to have for you, actually, was like hardest style of offense to go against. Is there that just frustrates the hell out of you trying to prep for, like an RPO or a play, like just a play that's like, I don't know what to do, because no matter what we do, they have an answer for it. Like, is there something out there that you're just like, man, I hate prepping for this play?
For me, like personally, I would say it's like the zone read with a quarterback that can run with a quick bubble. For you put that strong safety in a bind, especially if that quarterback's athletic. If we're forcing the quarterback to give the ball and he's athletic and he's still be able to get around the corner, get around our defensive end and make that strong safety commit, and the wide receivers get a block, and it's tough. You got one-on-one on the outside. So I think that's the hardest. Any good RPO scheme, where the quarterback's really dynamic, it makes it difficult on the defense.
Yeah, it's tough. John, if you want to pull up the Jalen Hurts clip, I want to see. So we have a couple clips of film, and they actually give a homage here to Ferris State in the tweet.
I can show that real quick. Eagles with the Ferris State special right here.
3x1 full ISO RPO, right? This is what they did. A lot of in the Super Bowl too. But we'll let you watch this a couple times and see what would you defensively try to do against this play and with Jalen Hurts and his ability to run and pass. Because I watch this and I see this and I feel bad for defenses, honestly. Like I don't know. It's really hard to prepare for and then to react to when they do call it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
When it's Kelsey, Kelsey's out, in space.
Exactly.
You're inviting Boza up and by,
Yep. The one thing that we do defensive scheme wise is obviously you're in the NFL, they're blitzing on the outside. So the defensive end's crashing a little bit. But for our basic scheme, with the defense that we run, Mark, you've seen it in person, set up on defense. It kind of, we're a run stopping team first. So our defensive end are playing B gap. Our defensive tackles are playing A, and our Mike scraping C to C, and we're boxing everything back in. So for us, that's our mindset is we got to stop the run first. So a lot of times, we're leaving our guys one-on-one on the outside, and we're selling out to stop this type of play. So,
you'd force them to throw it.
Force them to throw it. Yep. Force them. But this isn't easy, man. You got to mix things up when you're going against a high caliber team and a productive offense with a good offensive line. We'd have to wrap the defensive runs around and give them a two-way option, or else we'll never get pressure on the quarterback, or we got to bring pressure. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I'm trying to see, and like this, to me, like this linebacker on the outside here is the one that makes the mistake, because instead of trying to keep contained, it looks like he tries to go outside of the running back here to make the tackle, and Hurts is just too athletic for that.
But he's probably thinking pass, and like Tony said, try to get pressure on him because they'll torch you downfield too.
Yep. But I'm with you. It's either that guy has to scrape underneath or Bosa can't dip in that shoulder, and obviously he's told to do that. You know what I mean? So it's not easy, man.
It's a tough situation for sure. And then I also, where's the tweet here? I just want to pull this up too, because obviously this is huge kudos to you guys, and you get a shout out for the quote here too. With love is behind the power of our greatness. So, I mean, this is no joke here. I mean, you're in some pretty elite company as far as consecutive seasons with 11 wins or more. What's it been like just kind of being a part of a winning program, obviously doing that entire thing with your uncle as well? And, just keeping that standard and maintaining that standard year over year over year as you get new guys in too.
Yeah, no, it's been unbelievable since I've been there. I mean, I've been the co-DC since 2021. I just got the title this past year. But for me coming in 2019, really the defensive backs coach, defensive pass game coordinator, I took pride in being able to change, because a lot of times, I mean, we know it, Mark, with my uncle, it was a high-powered offense. When I was in college, it was a high-powered offense. They were putting up 40, 50 a game consistently, but they couldn't stop many people. And I'm not putting the blame on anybody or anything, but it's just whether it was scheme or whether it was players not being in the right spot or whatever, there was a lot of high-scoring games that they had to just outscore people. And I think for me, I take great pride in being able to go there and kind of change some things scheme-wise and put us in position to be a top-notch defense as well as a high-powered offense. And I think that's put us in position, to win back-to-back national championships. But for my uncle and just the whole coaching staff, like before I got there, they've always, the culture there, like he talked about love. It's a different type of environment. And me and Mark both played at Central Michigan. I had a great experience at Central Michigan, but it is a business-like atmosphere at the Division I level. Ferris State, we're a Division II institution, and I do think it's an open door policy. He's very, very, very open. It's not just about football. He's really impacting these kids' lives off the field, and he would do anything for these kids, that we have up there. And I think the kids feel it. There's a camaraderie and a chemistry with the coaching staff. And it's just a little different, man. It really is. It really is. He talks about it a lot of time, about how, it's not, when we're selling recruits, he's telling families, like, this is a place you want your son to be for 4 years. We're going to take care of him. It doesn't matter if he's the best player on the field or he could be the last guy on the bench. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys. The one thing about Ferris State, we don't have too many, how the transfer portal is crazy right now. We don't have too many guys entering the transfer portal. They're still fighting on the depth chart, maybe third, fourth string, that are still trying to compete, and still trying to stay, because we win. And it's a great education, and it's a loving culture. So I think it's been huge for Ferris State University and the success of my uncle and his tenure there.
And you mentioned recruiting. Are you involved much in recruiting at all? And if so, like, what are kind of your strategies for that? And I mean, it's a very large talent pool that you got to assess and kind of make a lot of tough decisions with.
Yep. So for the past 2 years, I've recruited Livingston, Oakland, and Genesee County. For me, it was just, I try and, go after kids. We have it's tough for us. We play deep into the December. So for us, we're trying to get guys to our summer camps and see what's out there. And then when it comes to December, we're hitting the ground hard and trying to get the best available in the state of Michigan. And the best available, it might be, 2 guys per position group. And then it's been, my uncle, Coach Brian Rock, who's the assistant head coach and quarterbacks coach, and Tessa Smith, who's the D-line coach, who've done a great job going down to Florida late and getting a bunch of guys from Florida that kind of go under the radar. It's a lot of talented, especially skilled position kids down there go under the radar. So we've had a lot of success with that. But I just think targeting a small group of guys that we want and going after them hard, that's what we do. And we're not just going to go and offer a ton of people and show love to everybody. We have a small selective group that we like and we go after. And I think that's been the success with us recruiting.
I got 2 questions too to go with that, Tony. I think the first thing is, when you were talking about the love is culture and all that, I mean, if anyone out there was never recruited for college, like that, what Tony was talking about is basically what a recruiting pitch will sound like. Mm-hmm. Ferris in a 30-second run, he wasn't even trying to, he was just explaining there, but that is kind of what I assume you do when you go into these schools and you ask the head coach, can I sit down with so-and-so? He's a hell of a player. I'd like to try to, talk to him about Ferris State and see if he'd be a good fit. That pitch that he said, my uncle and the standard of winning and, the back-to-back national championships, but not only that, it's the open door policy and the love is how we win games. And no matter if you're first or last on the depth chart, that pitch right there is, I think, what it sounds like, that conversation. Is there truth to that? Probably.
It really is. And I think, Mark, you've met TA, and I call him TA because name, but you've met him, you've been around him. He's as authentic as it gets. You know, he really is. He's real. And I think a lot of times, and I'm not putting people down when I say this, there's a lot of great coaches, in America and at the Division I level, but you don't get too many real authentic guys. I think Saban's one of them, Kirby Smart, the top of the top, you know, the cream of the crop, but there's a lot of guys that play the political role, and go that route when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to coaching. And you know, when you get a real authentic guy that's going to go in there and give his pitch and give it to you real and give it to you straight, I think it hits different. I really do.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, having the balls too, like some of the guys, Ferris State will offer some guys that no one's recruiting.
For sure.
You know, and they've done that even before you were there. Like that's been a thing. That's been a common theme. Like, I mean, you look at last year winning it, right? Jared Bernhardt comes in at quarterback. He was a lacrosse player. He was the top lacrosse player in Division I sports.
Yep.
And TA saw something in him and was able to convince him to come give football because he was a star football lacrosse player in high school. Didn't play football all of college.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees something in him as a lax player to come and play quarterback for them and lead them to their first national championship and put up ridiculous statistics and just was extremely fun to watch. I think he's with the Falcons now. I don't know if he still is, but that's the kind of guy Ferris would see something that every other coach in America missed, you know, the Nick Sabans of the world. I mean, they missed on a guy who had pro football caliber talent, who was not even playing football. That's the kind of stuff that, you know, you don't really see when you watch Ferris State play. You're just like, oh yeah, they got some dudes. Well, it's like, okay, yeah, but how do they get these guys? And I think, like you said, like it's finding the guys, getting them there, selling them on the culture, and then backing up what you say is going to happen, right? Telling kids this is going to happen. And then when they come there, that's actually the culture. Because so many coaches, I mean, you know it, I know it. The pitch sounds good, right? Like any sales pitch ever, and you get there and it's a business, right? There were times at Central for me where it was like that. I'm sure the same with you. And then there was times where it was real. But that's just kind of what you're going to get. Tony, is there like I mean, the success is there with Ferris State, and I think it's become a national notice, right, of what's going on there. Is there like is there something besides just the culture and like what TA does? Is there something that separates you guys, like some secret to the success, something maybe slightly different you guys do in your preparation, your off season scheme, how you guys prep for different opponents? Like, is there something that you really think makes kind of like that X factor difference in what gets you over the hump?
I think for us, I mean, I can speak personally, you know, from a defensive perspective, and I'll go into the offense a little bit later. From a defense perspective, the last 2 years, I think the attention to detail, you know, has been very, very, like it's been unreal. You know, there's a lot of guys in our defensive room. Like we have kids coming in there constantly that want to learn and want to get better. And it's easy when you got, especially young guys, you know, young guys that want to come in there and learn and pick up on stuff and not just going through the motions and not just watching film when you're showing up, you know, for meetings, you know. And like you see a lot of guys, even the guys I play with, man, it's the Division I level, right? You expect a certain type of, you know, commitment. And there's a lot of guys that just rely on raw talent and athletic ability. And that's not going to get you to where you want to go, especially, I mean, it will to an extent, depending on how talented, how athletic you are. But if you want to, you know, reach your peak when it comes to winning football games and being successful scheme wise, I think we have a lot of guys that are just bought in defensively, you know, the attention to detail, working hard, you know, competing in practice, like competitive, you know, competing. And offense, I can speak on just with what do we do offensively. I think it's just repetition, you know, like repetition. We're constantly just, you know, hitting the same. They talk about, especially with the triple option, Mark, you talk about meshes and you talk about the RPO game. It's, you know, we take thousands and thousands of reps to where the ball isn't on the ground. You know, we're executing the right way. Guys are on the same page. And I think that's crucial.
It's hard to stop when that's functioning.
Yep.
Defensively, as I'm speaking for, like when the mesh is right and you're reading everything right, whether it's RPOs or triple option run, like if you're reading it right, there's not, I mean, I don't care what you do defensively. It's hard. You know, it's hard to stop a team consistently, right? You might get them one play, but getting them 2-3 plays in a row is really hard to do.
Yep. Absolutely. And then on top of that, like, I think for me, you know, I'm a young coach and a young coordinator. I think me being able to translate to these kids in a way, because everybody learns different, right? Everybody learns different. So for me, be able to translate with all these kids in ways that they pick up on it, like I want smart players, smart players that are athletic, and you don't even get that at the highest level. You get some guys that just can't internalize enough to be able to, not make mental errors, and not blow a coverage or not do this and that. I think we got a lot of guys on both sides of the ball that are committed mentally and physically, and it puts us in position to win it, and especially in big games.
And because you're not that far removed too, I mean, you're still so young, right? And there's not many guys in a coordinator position at your age. And I
Yep.
think it's just a testament of how, how fast you were able to kind of insert yourself into the defensive scheme and provide your opinions and have success with it. But your ability probably to relate to these guys, like you were playing the same stuff that they were doing not too long ago. I had the same stuff like at Adams when I first started. I'm like, dude, I'm not that much older than you guys. I just did this stuff. I just played for Coach McFarland and my dad and all these people. Like, I know what it's like. Right. So I was kind of able to provide just a different twist on how to explain things that maybe, over the years and years and years they've coached, they might have kind of been separated from.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against them, but that's just.
Yeah, it's okay to say it, Mark. The old heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of wanted to segue into this play, and we got a defensive play to get into as well too. But so a couple years ago, Adams started running a form of this, and I believe it's credit to Mark kind of trying to
and Roncelli. Got to give Tom
and Roncelli.
Roncelli breaks down Ferris film probably more than he should. And he was poking at my dad for 2 years before I even got there to try to do this. And finally, with the help of me and him, my dad put it in. Yeah.
Triple option. There it is.
Yeah. So Tony, if you want to explain this a little bit from like if you want to explain it from like when you're trying to stop this in spring ball or whatever, and like how you explain this to your defense, like when you're watching this play, what the responsibilities of your guys would be to try to contain this.
Well, this is extremely hard play to defend when it's executed the right way. I'll tell you that much. It's extremely difficult. Like you got a guard and tackle that are pulling, so the Mike's probably freaking running opposite. He's running towards the boundary. Okay, you got a strong that's going to read run. Okay, so he's going to crash down. He's got a decision to make and how he strings it out. And how very, very difficult. And if these two guys, these two guys on the outside, if they either run decoy routes or they come up the field fast and they're on their guy and they're blocking well, and we're in our base quarters defense, Mark, it's
too late by the time they realize.
Yeah, it's done for. When this play is executed correctly, it is very, very, very difficult to stop. Somebody has to be a ball player and make a play. It's that simple. Somebody's got to be able to react. So go back here real quick to the beginning. Yep. Okay, so really the only player that has a chance to run that alley is the boundary safety. Okay, so the boundary safety, if we're in our base quarters, he's got his guy running in motion, running the triple option. He's shuffling. He's got to babysit this run first, right? And then he's got to run the alley, and he's going to be the free hat to go make a play.
And you can see him. He gets totally lost here. I mean, watch the guy right on the 10-yard line. He goes right, goes left, and then it's too late. You can't do that and have a chance to run the alley. I mean, but again, he doesn't know who has the ball, and by the time he realizes it, it's like
exactly
you just can't.
Just the offensive line execution on this too is just awesome. I mean, the push that they get with this double team too, so that the guards and the tackles can make that happen. It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's just being a pulling guard. That's the stuff of dreams right there. And then we got to show this interception play here as well.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the defense goes just as much with the offense, man. And like Tony said, the offense at Ferris has always been high powered, but like what Tony said, he's kind of been able to come in and help out on the defensive side, and they've just gotten better and better every year defensively. And now there's really no part of the Ferris State team, special teams, defense, offense, where there's weaknesses, man. There's just not much. It's hard to expose them.
Absolutely. And I definitely, I agree. I agree 100%. And this play, especially right here, we were kind of like, hey, there's 30 seconds left. They got the ball at their own 25. So we wanted 3 down, and we were just playing, a Tampa 2 mark, and they decided to throw a little quick slant. And obviously the kid was open, but he dropped it. Would have been like a 7-8 yard gain and
right
back to the house. But for us, I think going back to what you said before, I think, I pride myself on is constantly reinventing ourselves and being creative scheme wise. I want to show as many looks as possible and be creative, and not give a quarterback or an offensive coordinator too many indicators, and be able to, see what we're in and be able, because that's what and it's no offense to anybody or anything, but Ferris State, before I came there was, a base quarters team, played off quarters every single play, and there was not really a whole lot of variety. And when you play a good quarterback or you play a good offensive coordinator, you're going to be in some trouble,
right? Because if they know what you're going to be in every play, like that's a play caller's dream.
Exactly.
Like if you're gonna line up the exact same way every time, I mean, as a play caller, if you're any bit of a good offensive coordinator, I mean, you should be able to pick that defense apart.
Exactly. And going back to even Central Michigan, we played against Cooper Rush every single day. I tell this, in practice, it was dang near impossible to intercept him. You know what I mean? Because he was so smart and pre-snap, he knew what we were in, and he was able to pick us apart. We were a base quarters defense. We make some things up, but when you get a quarterback that's very intelligent, he's not gonna force things in there. He's gonna take what the defense gives him. He knows what you're in pre-snap. It's gonna be a long day.
Tony, another good question we have. So with pro days and combine and there's a lot of dudes out there right now training and trying to pursue their dream. You did that, right? Like you had professional opportunity. You had injuries kind of right in the heat of battle as this was happening, but you had the whole agent conversation, the pro day conversation, what do I got to do to get a combine? Like you kind of lived more than most guys ever get a chance to, right? Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give some insight on what those guys are going through right now, what their lives might look like a little bit, and maybe talk about just your experience and kind of, what happened with everything?
Yeah, no, I'll sum it up real quick. So Mark knows, but for me, I was a 4-year starter at Central Michigan. I was a 2-time Jim Thorpe Award nominee. Going into my senior year, I was, projected like late round pick going into my senior year. And I had a bad injury against Oklahoma State. It was the second game of the year. Some bad things happened. It was, I got some bad advice, and I ended up playing the next game on an injury and rupturing my calf. And so it was tough for me, and going through that process, it was very hard because before that, I got in talks with every big time agent there at summertime, every big time agent. And kind of dealing with the injury, it was up and down. You go through so much, and I put so much pressure on myself, and I know a lot of guys do. A lot of guys put all their eggs in one basket, and it's not an easy situation to deal with. So for me, fast forward, my senior year did not go the way I anticipated. I still signed with the agent. Went down to Atlanta to train at Chip Smith, and I re-injured my calf. So I wasn't able to, really commit to. I wasn't able to be healthy and perform the way I needed to perform. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's it. And my football career was cut short. But for a lot of guys, I mean, just getting past that, it's this process after the football season, I think, is the most important process for a senior, because you got to fully commit yourself and invest yourself to your body, getting in shape, eating the right things, really committing to be a professional at that point. You really do, because you got to have 2-3 months where you're locked in and dedicated, to perform the best you possibly can, because a lot, especially, smaller Division I level, Division II level guys coming up, if you want to really make it, you got to perform well at your pro day. It's that simple. So, guys that are under the radar a little bit, it's a lot of pressure, but I think if you take it serious and you commit yourself and you grind it out, you put yourself in position to be confident when it comes time to shine. And when the lights are on and you're running your 40, you're doing your shuttle, you've already done it. You're ready and you're prepared, and those guys have success. So, but to sum it all up, it's stressful, Mark. It's stressful for sure. But it's a part of the game, man. You got to go through it, and
it's so cutthroat too, man. Like it's like there's so many guys, that have that similar situation where either an injury happens or they get overlooked by one scout. They're in their one opportunity, or they have one shitty pro day or one shitty, interview. Like so many guys that had the talent to do it have something that happens to them that's not even in their control, or it's just one thing that goes wrong. It's like the margin for error, man, is so small because it's like the most competitive thing in the world to get into. I mean, there's a reason that there's not many professional, NFL football players, and there's cuts and they make a lot of money and all that stuff because it's so hard to get into.
Right.
There's so many guys where it's like they're just this close, or they're missing one thing on their film, or they, it's crazy, man. And
It
there's
is.
so many guys you watch play, and it's just like that guy could play on Sundays, and maybe you never see him play, or maybe you do, but it's just like it's so hit or miss, man. There's so many guys that get lucky, or there's some guys that go to the league that I question. I'm like, how the hell are they in the league?
Absolutely.
You know?
All the time. And I know, like, going back, and even a lot of guys that I play with that know me, know, how good I was as a football player. I'm not to boast or not to brag or anything, but how, I excelled on the football field, and football came naturally to me, and at the end of the day, certain things happen, and it's all about timing, man. Ending your career the right way. Like, you can have a guy freshman, sophomore year, doesn't play a lot, junior year, gets some reps, senior year, he ends out on top, he performs well, and then he performs well at his pro day. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Ending your career the right way, and then performing after the season. That's really what it comes down to. And you see a lot, and I know Mark, about Titus Davis, but that was he was the best receiver I played against in college. He was on my team, and rest in peace to Titus Davis, but he was a phenomenal football player. He ended up he hurt his knee his senior year a little bit, and really was in and out of the league for about 2-3 years, and really didn't, make it.
Yeah.
And he was,
that's another guy that would talk about when I got to Central, who was far removed from playing there, right? Like I said, they were talking about Tony when I got there. Like, there was whisperings of Titus Davis my entire time there, and unfortunately he passed away while I was there.
Yeah.
But his brother, you might have heard of him, Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Everything I heard, Titus was even better than Corey Davis. Like, from everybody that had seen them both play, and you've seen what Corey Davis did. He was a top 10 pick, I think, from Western Michigan. He's had a great career.
Yep. And and Corey did no shade to Corey Davis whatsoever. He's a great football player, and he was great in college and set all sorts of records. But I think Titus was just better.
That's what most people have said that I've heard that have seen them both play, or tried to cover them both, or whatever the case may be. If you saw them both play, most guys said Titus was even more impressive.
Yeah.
And I mean, those are two. You're comparing, like, I mean, Corey Davis is a top receiver in the NFL for most of his career, was a top draft pick, but Titus was just gifted, man. And and it's unfortunate, rest in peace to him. But so many guys that just slipped through the cracks, man. A lot of guys that people like John, you probably never heard of Titus Davis. Most people listening to this probably have never heard of Titus Davis.
For sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy, and it's so true. I mean, the margin for error is so tiny. And Tony, maybe one last question for you too. That's kind of NFL related, because we mostly talk NFL podcast. What do the Lions need to do defensively next year to get up to shape, right? Because obviously offense is not their problem anymore, and defense, a lot of people were scratching their heads, especially the first half of the season. What do they got to do to take that next step and become a playoff team? Because that's really what's holding them back at this point.
Honestly, I think offensively, scheme-wise, with their offensive coordinator, did a great job this year. I mean, I went to a game. I watched them play the Bears. I watched it live, and I was just very impressed schematically at what they do. Was Ben Johnson the offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he does a great job, absolutely great job with opening things up in the pass game. They run the ball well. Their offensive line was so much better than it's been in the past. I think defensively is where they need to improve, and I think it's would you talk about Jalen Ramsey, Mark? You don't want him to be
No, I was talking about Jalen in our. So we played back in a few. I don't even know how many episodes ago, but it was when they played the Saints and Ramsey got torched by Chris Olave like 3 or 4 times, double moves. He had his eyes in the wrong place the whole game, doing his own shit, right? Which he does a lot. And so that's where he cut the clip of me saying Jalen Ramsey, he sucks. I don't think he actually sucks. And the Lions, we'd be a much better team. I just don't know if he's a cultural fit for what we got going on in Detroit.
I hear you.
I like Marshawn Lattimore more coming. He said that last episode. Lattimore's more of a fit, more of an us dude. Yeah, I mean, a selfish guy. Like, I mean, I don't want to throw shade at Jalen Ramsey, but
no, he's a dog.
He's a dog, but he's been selfish at times, right? He kind of does his own thing. I don't know if he's going to come into a Dan Campbell coach team with a bunch of young guys that are trying to prove themselves and not come in with an ego that might be counterproductive to what we're doing and what we've built here. Marshawn Lattimore might come in and be more of a leader. I think Jalen Ramsey comes in and is kind of more of a, I'm here. I got my money.
I'm
let's
a
do this thing.
superstar.
I'm a superstar. I already have a ring. I don't know.
I hear you. I hear you. So to sum that last question, I would say maybe, like I said, one corner, one shutdown corner, and I think one linebacker really, run. I think they need a Mike. I don't know if Anzalone, I think they need to really play the run and pass at a high level at the linebacker position.
What do you think about Bobby?
Bobby
you
Wagner.
think we could? Yeah, do you think we could get him? He just got released.
I mean, I would think so. I would think so. You know, he'd come in and fit the mold perfectly. He's a guy that's freaking, you know, he's played at a high level his whole career. You know, he's going to buy in and be a great leader, you know.
I'd much rather have him. Like
Yeah.
just in terms of what we need. Like I know our secondary was probably worse than our linebacking core overall.
Yeah.
But I think you get Bobby Wagner on our team.
It's just a smarter move from a cap space perspective. You know, you don't have to swing as hard to go get him on your team, in my opinion. And not only from a position standpoint, but he's later in his career, and it sounds like he wants to win more than he cares about, you know, how big his bag is. So yeah, I think that matters a lot. But Tony, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciated it. Honestly, I think this is one of the best conversations we've had on here. I definitely learned a lot. And, you know, obviously you guys being family, it made for a really smooth, easy conversation. We got to dig into a lot of different things.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on. Really do.
Appreciate you, Tony. Enjoy Florida, man. You still on vacation or are you back?
Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back in a couple of days. I'll be back in that cold weather right before the snow hits. So
go hang out with Ryan. Go hang out with Ryan and make some TikToks or whatever he's doing.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, catch you later. See you. Yeah, that was awesome just because, again, like, I mean, you guys knowing each other and obviously just the whole coaching tree, a triple option, like just all of those different talking points. Like, I mean, just a very cohesive, like football oriented episode, right? And I think that could have gone on for another 30, 40 minutes, you know, if we really wanted it to.
When you start talking football with someone like that just is, he's still so young, but so, you know, has the playing experience, has the football mind because he just watched his uncle and his dad and well, both his uncles, my dad and Tony Annese's other uncle, like, you know, he's learned so much from so many different people. He's played offense, defense. You know, I think one of the coolest things that we didn't get a chance to talk about with him, and it's not even a long conversation, is I got to coach with him at Veer Camp this past season. Tony Annese Sr., the head coach, reached out to my dad, said, I know Mark's helping you out. Can he come work a jet read drill? So me and Tony, my cousin Tony, on a drill together. And so we coached together, you know, 15, 16 different high schools. You know, you did Veer Camp, doing the circuit, going in a circle, running different plays at every station. And our station was jet read. So we were coaching these guys together. And that was one of the coolest things, man, me and him getting to coach together.
That had to be awesome.
Whatever happened in the future, you know, God knows what the future is. I mean, Tony probably would climb up the coaching ranks pretty quickly. But that was pretty cool to coach with him. Obviously, the chemistry just instantly happened. We didn't even have to talk about what we were gonna. The drill went really smooth. We got on guys that need to get, you know, yelled at a little bit. We encouraged the guys that did it right. We were able to provide an example of how to do the drill. Like, it just worked well. And that was one of those moments.
Well, again, like the pipeline of, like, you know, really dominant player at Adams High School to going to Central Michigan to getting into coaching. Like, I just love the fact that you guys are keeping that alive. And then obviously, like, your uncle and your dad, pretty similar pipeline as well. So it's very cool. And, you know, just, I mean, obviously the only interactions that I had with, you know, Tony Annese Sr. is those brief interactions at Veer Camp. But we talk about the brand of football, not only from, you know, an X's and O's standpoint, but also a cultural standpoint where, you know, he's saying it's family, open door policy. Like, Mark, I got to be honest, like, that's exactly how I felt, you know, playing under your dad, because by 8th grade, right? Like, he knows that I'm going to Adams and stuff like that. Start up side conversations with me, ask me how things are going, you know, and you know as well as I do, like, he sees a football player in the hallway as people are going between classes. He's starting conversations with them, asking how they're doing. I mean, I'm 5 years removed from playing football now. And so are you. Well, not 5 years removed, but you're removed from playing football. And like, I'm walking through the grocery store when I'm visiting my family's place in December. I just hear, Vocal, what the hell are you doing? And I turn around and I see your dad there. Like, it's just, it really does make you feel like it's a family. And I think that does have a huge impact because, like, you know, I'm not a super big guy. I was a pretty undersized dude, but like, I went to practice every day on varsity. Like, it was the end of the world. And I played like it was my last time ever playing. And I think you only get that out of players at like my caliber, unless, you know, they're fully bought in and they feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves.
That's right there is the biggest thing. Their ability, my dad, Tony Annese, their ability to get guys to buy in and believe they're not doing it for themselves. It's always bigger than themselves, and you'll never be able to do and accomplish something alone that, nothing you can accomplish alone, you'll be able to accomplish with a group of people like that, right? A group of 100 dudes on a team, all with one common cause and purpose, one goal. Like, again, like sacrificing, all the other things just for that one goal with all these other dudes. There's just not many things as empowering as that, and as inspiring to get guys that maybe aren't even really on the depth chart to buy. Like Tony said, I mean, he's got guys, they have so many guys on the roster, John, they couldn't even, not everyone had a jersey. You go to a Ferris State home game, there's more guys not dressed on the sideline than actually dressed and playing. That's just the culture they have. All those guys are practice guys, practice squad guys. Here we go. Practice squad pod, practice squad. Most of their team, most of their roster aren't even dressed on game day. Not because they're hurt, because they're not, because they can only dress so many. Right. They have like over 100.
Well, and again, it's like the mentality of, right, like you have two ways that you could think about not being a starter. And I've been there, so I know those are the two mentalities. Is one, like, you can think, oh, I'm not a starter, my input doesn't matter as much, or you can think, it is my sole responsibility to make sure everybody around me is getting better as a result of how I'm playing in practice every single day. And like, again, like that was kind of my reputation when I played football, is like, yeah, a lot of the time I was a scout team O-line guy, and I made everybody on the defense hate me. Right. I made Adam Slating rip off my helmet and almost started a fight with me. I remember one time, because of the fact that I would go whistle the whistle, play over play. That dude should have been crushing me. He was twice my size, but I got under his skin because of the fact that like that effort was there.
Which
and, like,
made him better in the long run.
Right. You get 50 guys doing that and everybody gets better. Exactly. So, anywho, I know, NFL podcast, we haven't really talked too much NFL in the past 45 minutes, so we can get into it. Again, slow news week, so it's kind of a nice segue. Not as slow as last week.
Football's football, man. Football podcast, man. If you like football, this is, I mean, you're probably enjoying this episode so far, and we got even more coming. We got some NFL stuff
I mean, and
coming.
honestly, I've said this to you before, Mark, like, especially with your brain, like, I would love to just dig in on X's and O's a lot more, because of the fact that, like, I think not only do you have so much great insight, but you explain it in a way that like a bonehead like me can kind of keep up with like what's going on, because that's the toughest part, right? There's 22 moving parts in any given football play. How do you assess what's going on? How do you diagnose, why this play was successful or why it was a failure? But yeah, I mean, so some cuts happened today. We're recording this Tuesday,
some
the
big
28th.
Names.
Yep. Carson Wentz, gone. Out. Marcus Mariota, gone. Now, here's two bigger ones, right? Leonard Fournette, Lombardi Lenny.
Bye Lenny.
And Bobby Wagner, gone. So lot of big moves in the past week there. Is there anybody? Oh, here's a funny one, right? Kenny Galladay, $36 million contract for 46 catches with the Giants is what they paid for. That is roughly a little less than $1 million per catch.
And here's the thing, dude. We'll never know really what happened there. He was so good with Detroit, and he earned that money. I mean, he really was really good with the Lions, and they didn't really play him in New York. I don't know if he just kind of became a cancer to the team, or if he had a bad attitude, or he had injury problems. You never really know what goes on behind the scenes, but he was a hell of a player for Detroit, and he earned the right to sign a big time contract with a different team. And I don't know why that didn't work. We'll probably never know.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to give you an answer that you're probably not going to like, but I genuinely think Matt Stafford, being the teammate and the leader that he was, allowed Kenny Galladay to elevate himself to a level that he wasn't able to match with Daniel Jones, who's a rookie with less experience and maybe doesn't have that same skill set of getting good things out of their players.
I hate that answer, John.
Why do you hate that answer, Mark?
Listen, I love Matthew Stafford. Definitely gets a lot out of his players, but listen, when you're in the NFL, if you're Kenny Galladay and you've had the production that we've seen on the field, and yeah, most of it was with Matthew Stafford throwing the ball, but a lot of it was him going up and making plays in neutral coverage. 50-50 balls where he would come down with it. Him running a great route. And Matthew Stafford got him the ball, but he really didn't even get an opportunity to shine in New York. And maybe you're right. Maybe the culture wasn't the same with Daniel Jones. But listen, like at that level, no matter who's playing, I don't care. I mean, we've seen some fourth string quarterbacks come in and receive, like Devontae Adams, dude, caught touchdowns. I think he had his biggest statistic game this season from Jarrett Stidham. Okay, so there's no
Right.
if you're good enough, there's no excuse who your quarterback is.
I don't
you know.
disagree with you, but like think about even that trade, right? And I would say Detroit. I know the Rams got a Super Bowl out of the situation, but I think Detroit, just from a pure standpoint of looking at that trade, was the winner of that trade based off of how Jared Goff has been playing. What I'm trying to get at though is Jared Goff and Matt Stafford are not all that different of quarterbacks. Like I honestly, right now, I'd argue Jared Goff is probably playing better than Matt Stafford as a quarterback. So what did
He
they
100%
trade?
is.
Yeah. So what did they trade for Matt Stafford for? Because they saw something in him. And what I think that was is they needed a veteran that could get the best out of the offense that he was playing with. And I don't know if Goff was at that point in his career yet. Right. He might be now. Maybe 2 years ago they didn't think so. And I think that's what they got out of him.
The debate of who won that trade will go on forever because no matter how bad the Rams fall apart, they got a Lombardi out of it, dude.
Right.
You know, like they got a Lombardi out of it. And listen, yeah, Jared Goff had a better season last year than Stafford. Even before Stafford got hurt, he was having a better season. And that was when the Lions were losing, by the way. He was still playing better. You know,
objectively, less interceptions, higher QBR.
He was a fact better quarterback before the Stafford injury even happened. But, you know, that ring, if you're a Rams fan, if you're a Rams coach, if you're a player on that team, if you have anything to do with the Rams, I don't think you can ever say they lost that trade because they got what they wanted out of it. You know, they got a Super Bowl out of it. And who knows? I mean, they might rebuild next year and come back stronger. I don't know. Stafford probably only has 1 or 2 years left. I mean,
I'm thinking
one. This year.
I'm thinking the injuries are.
And I don't think people saw that coming. John, when they made that trade, that's a factor I don't think people take into account. When they made that trade for him, they definitely thought he had 5-6 years left. I did. I thought Stafford had 5-6 years left.
Well, especially like durability, right? And that's the crazy part about this sport. And actually, this is a great segue into this tweet. But the crazy part about this sport is you can be a durable guy forever, and it just takes one injury to completely change the course of how that looks for you. And also, we need to consider the long-term effect that this has on players, and then why they can just fall apart so quickly in one season. Because we've seen it happen to a lot of guys. So this tweet
that's why
Jones,
John, that's why the longevity of some of these guys that we've seen play, like, you know, watching Devontae Adams do what he's doing for as long as he has, watching what Tom Brady did for as long as he did.
The fact Tom Brady took a sack at 45 years old, period, at any point is insane. If you think about that, right? Man. Like it's like getting hit by a car.
The fact that Aaron Rodgers is even playing, like watching and even the quarterbacks excluded, watching like some of these guys, defensive linemen that have been in the league for so long, like to be at that athletic peak for that long is so rare. Most guys have 2 years where they're like, you know, maybe 26, 27, where they're absolutely at their athletic God-given peak, healthiest, fastest, strongest, most explosive they've ever been. And then you start to decrease. It's science. That's going to happen. And some of these guys play for like 20 years. And it's like, how in the world, right, did you do that? And here's Byron Jones. Go ahead, read this tweet that, you know, there's a lot of talk going on about him.
Yeah. And he quote tweeted this, I think, kind of out of the blue.
Well, because they were talking the combine, and Byron Jones holds the broad jump record.
Right. But this tweet is from 2015 that he quote tweeted. If you see that, that is an original tweet from this broad jump.
That is, maybe it got retweeted or something. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I remember when that happened. It was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. And so he's saying, looking back, right, he said, much has changed in 8 years. Today, I cannot run or jump because of my injuries sustained playing this game. Do not take the pills they give you. Do not take the injections they give you. If you must, consult an outside doctor and learn the long-term implications. And look, I think, and sorry, he replied to this, and I think this is a good reply, so I think it's worth mentioning. It was an honor and privilege to play in the NFL, but it came at a regrettable cost that I did not foresee. In my opinion, no amount of professional success or financial gain is worth avoidable chronic pain and disabilities. Godspeed to the draft class. And look, I mean, there's clearly some bitterness in his tone, and I think that's, you know, what he retired a year ago this year.
Very recently, yeah, I think
very recently. And so, like, naturally, there's going to be some bitterness because if you're retiring because your body's just straight up giving out on you from so much trauma that you've taken, there's, you know, it's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. But I do think the sentiment is really powerful in the fact that, like, we do not appreciate the fact, yes, they're millionaires. Yes, they're doing something that little kids dream of doing every day. Yes, like they get to play a sport for a career, and that sounds fun as hell. All of those things are true, but that doesn't change the fact that they are truly putting their bodies on the line in order to play this sport, and the effects go far beyond after, during their playing career. After their playing career is over, they're dealing with that shit for probably the rest of their lives, especially at that level, because, when you and I got injured, Mark, right? Like, nobody was giving us, whatever, HGH injections, or like, whatever Pat Mahomes was probably on for the Super Bowl. Like, and again, like, it's what goes with it. Again, you're a multimillionaire that plays a sport. You're expected to play come hell or high water, but there is a cost, and it's okay to acknowledge that there is a cost.
There's definitely a cost. And, I think it's gotten a little bit better in recent years, but there was a while, man, where it was, Calvin Johnson kind of talked about it when he retired early and surprised the world, right? Lions, thought he probably had another good 6-7 years left in him. He retired kind of at his peak, as we talk about that. And he kind of blamed the drugs and the injections, and he needed those to play. And he just didn't want to do it to his body anymore. And he's one of those guys that has openly said it, and Byron Jones is kind of doubling down, saying other guys have caught the same thing. When you're in the NFL, like you said, it's a business, and you're getting paid a lot of money to do your job. And if you can't play, you can't do your job. And so those doctors, I don't want to question what they're doing in terms of their medical decision-making, but their job at the end of the day is to make sure these players can play. And if there's something they can give these players, and the players in the moment too, when you're a young player, like if you're Patrick Mahomes, he was literally going to take anything to play the second half of that Super Bowl game and not feel pain.
Absolutely.
It could have taken 10 years off his life. Yes,
he
would. They would say, listen, we're going to give you this, but you will die in 30 years. Guaranteed. You will not live past this. Probably done it. Because as a player, you're not thinking about in order to be a great player and to be as good as you can be, you're in that moment. And like, dude, I played through some stuff. I have no idea how I played through. And you don't feel it till like the adrenaline dies down after the game. You're like, oh my God, my ankle is the size of my thigh right now. Right. But
you were dealing with that your senior year, right? And you also, didn't you have a broken hand early in high school?
I had all kinds of stuff. I broke my pinky. I played with 3 fingers freshman year of high school, and then everything else was taped down on one hand. In college, I had a broken scapula. So I had a fractured bone in my scapula that they thought was a shoulder injury. So they got x-rays, and it was so swollen that they couldn't see the fracture. So I kept practicing, and I couldn't move my arm. And my head coach had to pull me aside, and he was like, okay, well, can you still hold for extra point? And I was like, yeah. And I probably shouldn't have been doing it, because if I got a high snap, there's no way I could get my arm up to grab it. But thank God my long snapper just put it in the right spot every time. But I literally was like, I don't want to leave the field, because if I do, I'll lose my job. If I leave someone else the chance to come and take this job, they'll take it. And so that, like, you and it's the same thing, but only way worse in the NFL, because you're talking about not just your job, you're talking about like your legitimate life job that pays your family.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a pride thing anymore. It's literally like, if you get cut, like your life changes drastically. Like you do not have millions of dollars to give to your kids or your wife or whatever, so it's even bigger. Like Byron Jones, he can say that all he wants, that if he would have known this, he wouldn't have. It's easy to say that when you have millions of dollars you're sitting on, and you'll probably never have to work a day in your life. Like that's a pretty easy thing to be like, yeah, I'm in pain every day, but how many people would, I'll be in pain every day to have the money Byron Jones has, for the rest of my life easily. Right. He made a lot of money.
Yeah. No, I mean, no doubt. So it's a fine balance, and it's okay to acknowledge both sides, right? There's allowed to be nuance. The thing that drives me nuts is like, these players are human at the end of the day. They're people at the end of the day. And right. And my experiences from that come more from music than it does from football, but same thing, right? Like these people, some of the people that I've gotten the opportunity to interact with in music, it's like, oh, they're treated like gods. But at the end of the day, they're just like you and me, and they just happen to be really good at what they do. And at the same time, it's like these NFL players still have emotions, right? They still feel bad when people talk shit to them. I guarantee you, they still feel those injuries and come home with those injuries at the end of the day. All of these things, right? They're not, and that's the thing is like, I think some people like look at like, these like fantasy football icons and think this entire thing's a big video game or a big Madden game, and these guys aren't real. But it's like, dude, like one day you can show up to a game like Jalen Ramsey against the Saints last season and absolutely suck, right? and we're not, and we just keep. I think this theme is kind of funny, but it's just like Jalen Ramsey doesn't suck. Period. Obviously not. He's one of the best
in the game
in the league. But when he played the Saints that week, he stunk. We don't know what it was. Maybe something bad happened with his girlfriend. Maybe he had a lagging injury. Maybe he just did a bad job prepping for what the Saints were going to throw at him that week. But point being is that the Jalen Ramsey that played against the Saints was not the Jalen Ramsey in plenty of other games where he was a complete lockdown corner. And that shit happens because these people are humans at the end of the day. And I think it's important to remember that.
Yeah, and there's so many guys too, John, like you mentioned, like the whole fantasy world, like, you know, they almost seem larger than life and most fans treat them as such. Yeah, they're humans. And like a lot of these guys, you know, I think it's crazy. Some of the craziest thing that you see in the media is like someone will come out and be like, oh, screw Christian McCaffrey for not playing today. I had him in my fantasy team. And like he came out and said, I don't care about your fantasy team. And people are like giving him shit for it. It's like, dude, why would he care about a fantasy game that you're gambling with your friends and hoping to win money when this is his life? Like he's the actual one playing, you know,
especially since he's been battling injury his whole life and he's probably going to have a lot of consequences.
A lot of players don't give a shit about fantasy football, right? And then there's some out there that are kind of fun and have fun with it, like Austin Eckler drafts himself and he'll literally tweet 3 days prior like, hey, I'm not playing or whatever because he actually cares about the people. And listen, I don't think that you should as an NFL player give a shit at all. I don't think you should care at all. But some guys have fun with it. But it's definitely not an expectation for them to give a shit about what fans think of them playing or not. Like,
well, and I'll say this too, like we have come a long way. And as much as, you know, like unions can get annoying in some situations, like the NFLPA has been great for making sure that like player safety is taken more seriously. Because I feel bad that I don't know his name. JV football coach when I was playing JV, but he was like defensive backs, played in the NFL, played for the Lions. Coach Harvey. Coach Harvey had a highlight reel of games where he was concussed.
Yeah.
And he played in what, the 80s, I think?
Maybe even before that. I don't even
know.
Before
that, long time ago. And the point that I'm getting to here is they didn't really know concussions were a thing. And he literally had a highlight reel of games now in hindsight, knowing that he was concussed. And literally, it's just, you got your bell ring, go play your bell rung, go play the rest of the game. And he said like, yeah, like they didn't pull you out in those days. So the sport has come a really long way from like those very dark times when like, your life was being threatened by some of those hits and some of those.
Dude. And because of what the game is too, John, you know, I think this is a good closing note on this topic, on this discussion. Like, because of what it is and the competitive nature of it, like I said, you're competing for your pride. It's literally your livelihood for most of these guys. And for most of these guys, they're like fringe guys, right? Like they're not the big contract guys. They're not the Tyrann Matthews. They're not the Bobby Wagners. Like these guys can get cut on any given day, you know, the smaller rookie contract guys. So if your head hurts a little bit, most guys are probably not going to say
oh no, did we officially lose Mark? I think we did. Beautiful thing is that I have editing experience. So right now
we're back.
Nice. Well, look, I got editing experience, so the fan base has no clue how much time just elapsed between when you dropped out and when we started this conversation.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, hey, we were teetering a little bit during Tony's interview that I was like, oh God, here we go.
I know. I disappeared for like a half second, but I was able to get back in. But yeah, I don't know what the last thing that was heard for sure, but I just wanted to close out that topic with saying the players a lot of the time, just because of the nature of what the game is, the competitive nature, will play through injuries that they probably shouldn't. And most guys, you never even hear that the injury happened, right? And guys like Byron Jones will come out and they'll say stuff, but for the most part, football is a violent game. Everyone understands that. And you are going to sacrifice having a luxury of living into your 60s, 70s, 80s with no pain to have badass moments and memories when you're 24, 25, making millions of dollars, playing for your family, playing for your friends. You know, I don't regret a single injury I played through, and I'm definitely going to have, you know, back injuries. And I mean, have you seen my dad walk? You think he regrets that?
Yeah,
my dad walks like I mean, he's sideways, bro. He's crooked. He's had back surgery before. He'll probably need another one before he's gone. But he would not ever say that he would go back and change anything to have a straight back. Like it's just kind of the nature of the thing.
I remember even just like the last game that we played and losing that playoff game, and like, obviously you would go on to have other opportunities, but like that was it for me. And like, dude, like just that, playing high school football, like there's no payment, there's no scholarships, there's none of that.
Love of the game.
It's literally love of the game, and that was just the most crushing thing ever to know that you were never going to take the field again. And like, so you can only imagine, like, it's got to be like an addiction when you're at the NFL level and you're at that, like,
and then you include the money, you include the fame, you include the, the fans and all that stuff. It's a whole different level of like, I do not want to miss. Should be better now too. I reran the test.
All right. Mark's Wi-Fi is sounding like it's a tenured NFL player that's been through the ringer and is about to give out on us. So we're gonna take a quick talk just through some free agency stuff, and we're probably gonna wrap up here. As far as free agency goes, like I prefer, as far as Lions go, Bobby Wagner I'd prefer to see over Jalen Ramsey for sure. If we can trade for a guy like Lattimore, that would be great. Because Saints are going to need to free up some cap space. He's still on contract. But honestly, like the Lions have been conservative and have built their team through the draft. I'm personally just looking forward to them doing that. If we sign a couple players in the process, great. Like I'm sure Holmes is going to continue to manage his cap space properly. But I think overall, like this model's working for us. Let's not abandon it for, some crazy contractor player like that. I think.
What are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson and that, that circus that's going on?
Dude, it's tough because like, I think they hired an OC with Lamar in mind. And regardless of if they can't agree on a number, they can still franchise tag him for this year.
They got to franchise tag him.
That's the thing. I don't know why you wouldn't do that unless like some team comes knocking on your door and says like 2 first-round picks and a couple players, like a Russell Wilson level trade.
I'm hearing some stuff, John, that he doesn't want the franchise tag. He wants the guaranteed money, and he might be willing to sit or demand release if they try to franchise tag him, which would be very stupid on his part because he'd be turning down a lot of money. But
because a franchise tag instantly makes you what, a top
5, I think.
5, right?
It's averaged out.
Yeah,
but still, man, he wants to bet on himself. Who knows? He's had injury issues. He's a running quarterback, right? Dual threat guy. He knows injuries could happen to him. He's one injury away from being a very different player. Yeah, he wants to, because he's asking for the guaranteed Deshaun Watson money, which is crazy, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I know he's been great.
I hate that the Browns broke the market with that shit over a freaking dude like Deshaun Watson. Like, it's so stupid. I mean, I have plenty of thoughts about that we've been over. But then, just pivoting to somebody that I don't think is going to be with their team next year is Aaron Rodgers. I think the situation's the same. I think that the Jets and the Raiders are the 2 most likely people to try to bid for him. We'll see what happens, right? Came out of the darkness, but we haven't heard anything. It's still darkness as far as the media goes and what's going on. So
it's bizarre. It's bizarre that he has been in little contact with the Packers too, from what I'm hearing, which is weird. It's
also immature, it's him or Jordan Love. That's so. Goons to Coons essentially alluded to that, where he says, "Yeah, like no matter what, Jordan Love is going to be playing somewhere." Right? Is essentially like I'm paraphrasing here, but what that is essentially saying is they're either going to keep Aaron Rodgers around and trade Jordan Love away for capital, or what I think is more likely is the opposite, is they're going to keep Jordan Love, who's shown flashes, see what they have in him, and go try to get some draft capital for Rodgers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, free agency moves. Mariota was released. Wentz was released. These are guys that are going to be out there floating. Who knows if they even get opportunities.
I think both those guys are second stringers for the rest of their lives, unfortunately.
Do you think that, I mean, Wentz has been bad enough where I don't even know, he might be an XFL guy. Like I don't even know if he's an NFL guy again.
Yeah, what a fall from grace after his ACL. But me and Zach were talking about this earlier. Like, his ACL is not why he's a bad quarterback. It's purely his decision making. He plays reckless, stupid football.
He holds the ball. He forces it at the wrong times. He's not a good game manager. He was an MVP caliber. He was gonna win the MVP that year he got hurt. with the Eagles. He was the year they won the Super Bowl with Foles. He was going to win the MVP and probably would have won a Super Bowl with that team. He was a starting quarterback on the team that ended up winning.
Just hasn't gotten over
crazy
that
the downfall.
mental hump after the fact. Yeah, exactly. And
But
again,
you bring things full circle, John. Like I said, one injury can change a player forever. Tony said it. I mean, these guys, like, he was given every chance once he got into the pros. One thing goes wrong, he misses an entire season of kind of, learning and developing, loses his coach, right? Peterson was not his coach after that. And it's just a different thing. I mean, you've seen what Doug Peterson's developed Trevor Lawrence into. He's a quarterback whisperer. He does very well developing young guys, and Wentz missed out on that due to that injury. He was reaching his level of what he can be, and then took a huge fall back and never has gotten back to where he needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that case, right, it's not their body giving out on them. It's literally just his mental.
It's repetitions. It's all that stuff. And as you get older, I mean, your chances just decrease, like he's running out of time. He might have already run out of time. And Mariota's had, he's had little stints, but he's more of a good backup to bring in because I think he can still do the dual threat thing.
He'll be a reliable second string guy for a few more years.
I wouldn't mind him coming to Detroit, backing up.
Yeah, man. No, that's not a bad idea depending on what the money situation is.
He's a cultural fit.
I absolutely think so. He's a good dude. That he sounds like
repping the Oregon hat today, by the way. Just coincidence. We talk about Mariota. Hey, look out for him on the Random Dogs episodes, by the way. His Oregon career
was nuts. Oh, and everybody,
man.
Dude, for 2 years when Mark and I were in middle school or whatever, like Mark was just a huge Oregon fan, and really it was just because he was a Mariota stan and he loved how they.
Well, I loved him even before Mariota. I loved the uniforms and their offense. I loved Chip Kelly. I was a fan of LaMichael James and Jeremiah Masoli, all those guys that came before Mariota, and then Mariota was like the peak of when I was a bandwagon fan of Oregon. But I remember, John, and you could check my Instagram. I posted a picture of Mariota. I said, future Heisman. It was after his redshirt freshman season. He wasn't even on the radar of winning a Heisman. He just had like an average season. And I said, future Heisman. He won the Heisman the next year.
That's awesome.
I'm
going to go fact check that, and we'll clip this and get that Instagram.
You can fact check it, dude. You can fact check it.
Awesome. Well, hey, we'll wrap up here just in the event that I have to edit a third time. Mark's Wi-Fi implodes on him, but hopefully we're good to go for the last minute or two here. But this was a great episode. I think off season we're gonna have more and more opportunities to kind of just genuinely talk football, get in the trenches on talking more football rather than news events and players and all that stuff. So I'm personally really excited about that, and I'm excited to have a co-host with such a great football mind that we get to dive into that stuff. So and his Wi-Fi blows up again before we make it to the end. So look, I'm just gonna sign this one off. For the both of us, we will catch you guys next week. See you later.